And welcome back to the OHIO podcast, everybody. And we are now joined by Joel Whetzel. He is the beat writer for Youngstown State for the Vindicator and the Tribune Chronicle. Joel, thank you so much for joining us this evening here on the OHIO podcast to preview Ohio State and the Penguins of Youngstown State, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. We're looking forward to the trip down.
Yeah, this is before we get into the series of questions, I've got to say that this is special for me because I am a huge Jim Tressel fan.
Hmm.
Like you could probably say I'm a sweater vest fanboy. Have been ever since I was in college when he was the head coach and brought a national championship to Ohio State when I was there. And I we've been trying to get Ohio State to let him dot the I in this game. I don't think it's going to happen because we haven't heard anything. I usually they would let the cat out of the bag if that was going to be. What's your thoughts on Jim Tressel? Do you still see him around the program and things?
Yeah, he still makes appearances. I mean, he's still in the area, generally speaking. Actually, he speaks at practices every now and again, so he's still relatively involved. I think he's trying to enjoy retirement the best he can, but he has always kind of struck me as one of those guys that always needs to be into something just to keep himself active. But yeah, he's certainly beloved in Youngstown.
Oh, I imagine he's beloved statewide, man. Like
Mhm.
he is a national treasure. Let's start here, Joel. So this game's interesting to me because Youngstown State is a small school program, but yet they have this kind of big school feel about them. As far as this game against Ohio State, how does the team view the opportunity to play Ohio State and play in Ohio Stadium, this being the third time they've done so?
Yeah, I think everyone's probably pretty excited. I mean, this is the biggest Power Five stage they've played on probably in quite some time. I mean, Kentucky and Michigan State are both great venues. We've enjoyed both trips, but I think staying in state and going to a place that probably a lot of these guys grew up watching is going to be a special experience. I also think they go in thinking they've got nothing to lose. It's one of those situations everybody's probably counting them out. What happens if you lose? Nothing. What happens if you win? Everything to gain. So, uh,
Yeah.
which makes them a little dangerous, but we'll see.
Yeah. They seem to be pretty explosive in their first game. So tell me a little bit about this team. I know you've gotten to see them one game under their belt now, and it seemed like they are pretty explosive offensively.
Hmm. Yeah. So year four under Doug Phillips, this is kind of the season everybody's wanted him to build toward. It's been a labor of love. One win in that weird COVID spring season the FCS played, three wins in 21, the fall of 21. And then last year they went 7-4 and just missed on an FCS playoff appearance. So this year, kind of the expectation is make the playoffs, win a game or two. As far as the team itself goes, it's a Doug Phillips team. They take pride in running the ball, but they're going to be well balanced. Mitch Davidson, a quarterback, can sling it around the field. And defensively, they've really improved in the last couple seasons. So we'll see how everything kind of stacks up.
Yeah. So you mentioned the head coach there. Talk a little bit about this coaching staff and kind of the philosophy that they have. Sounds like they've been building up to this year, so it sounds like they have a pretty good team.
Yeah, they've always prided themselves on being what Doug Phillips will talk about till he's blue in the face being a developmental program. They don't really rely on the transfer portal a ton. Almost all of these guys that you'll see on the field are in-house products, with the exception of tailback Tyshawn King and receiver Bryce Oliver on offense, and then a couple defensive guys. But they've really valued recruiting locally, recruiting the state of Ohio, building up these kids, and then in 2 or 3 years putting them on the field. And now you're in year four where those original guys and some of the Bo Pelini holdovers have really gotten their chance to develop and see the field now.
So, who are some of the names that Ohio State fans should know before the game because they're going to hear the PA announcer name them quite often during the game?
Yeah, so I think if you start on offense, it begins with receiver Bryce Oliver. He was originally a Kentucky uh, receiver and then hit the transfer portal. and came down to Youngstown State, or up, I guess, from Kentucky. But
Mhm.
really explosive, really dynamic, athletic. He's not super tall by any means, but can jump, I mean, out of the building. So their offense will look to stretch the field with him in the backfield. It's kind of a 1-2 punch with Dre Rushton and Tyshawn King. Dre was held out of the Valpo game as a game time decision. He's got something going on with his lower leg. But between the two of them, they don't feel it's a first and second stringer as much as it is, as much as it is 1A and 1B. Dre's pretty shifty, can get between the tackles and run pretty quick. And then Tyshawn's pretty downhill, but he can feature some burst when he gets into open space. And then defensively, it all starts up front. Look for Dylan Woodkey. He's a defensive end, all Missouri Valley player, all American caliber, and he's really disruptive. And really, everything they do defensively starts up front.
So you brought up the Valpo win from last week. Kind of give our listeners and viewers kind of a rundown of how that game went for Youngstown. Sounded like they got off to a little bit of a slow start, and then they really kicked it in gear.
Mhm. So yeah, a little slow start. They were up 7-3 after the first quarter. Actually, went up 14-3 in the second, and could have landed what I would have called the knockout blow at one point, but they ended up settling for a field goal and only going up 17-3. And then the defense gives up a touchdown right before halftime. So it's a one-score game going into half. And then in the second half, they blew the doors off of Valparaiso. 3 fumbles, all of which ended up in as points for YSU, and that's kind of how they blew it open. 2 of those were strip sacks. So, like I said, starts up front defensively, and they'll look to use the defense to keep them in games, and then the offense eventually gets it going.
Yeah. So a little bit about kind of the pulse of the fan base there. Yeah. So, I mean, I assume that there's quite a few Youngstown Penguin fans who are also Buckeye fans
Mm-hmm.
when, and then kind of getting the best of both worlds together here. What's the fan base like there? Is it kind of like, this is just cool, just sit back and enjoy the whole darn thing? Or is this like, you know what, let's go up there and beat the Buckeyes type of thing?
I think there's a little of both. I think a lot of
Okay.
people are probably like, man, this is awesome. Like our 2 teams are getting together. But there's a pretty vocal segment of the YSU fan base that looks at this as, hey, this is Youngstown against the world. Go down
Sure.
there and shock everybody. So kind of a neat split, but I think probably the majority look at this as a cool opportunity to see 2 local teams.
Yeah. Now there's, when you look at this from the perspective of Ohio State, they really have nothing to gain from this and everything to lose. I guess if you wanted to look for positives, it was like, hey, there are some things in the opening game against Indiana that didn't look so hot. Maybe against a smaller school, we can kind of work some of those kinks out a little bit. But I gotta be honest with you, in the back of my head, I still remember Appalachian State shocking the team up north, man. Like, and every year I love to rub that into their fan base, to, hey, remember when? And you kind of run the risk when you do this,
Mm-hmm.
when you play a smaller school like this, if some crazy thing were to happen, it's going to follow your program for eternity. Like, it's
Yeah.
never going to go away. Like, I'm originally from Knox County, and there's a little college there in Gambier, Ohio, a little village called Kenyon College. And
Mm-hmm.
there was a time Kenyon beat Ohio State. Now, it was back in like 1903, but everybody from Gambier likes to talk about the days when great grandpa saw that victory, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
which is crazy because even Ohio State was a small school back then. But what I'm getting at is the fact that you run the risk of that. I really feel like they did this, Ohio State signed this on because they love to at least sign one school from Ohio every year to share the wealth with.
Mm-hmm.
Has there been any talk in the athletic department there at Youngstown of the financial benefit of coming to Columbus and kind of receiving that big paycheck to kind of pay for sports for the year?
Yeah, they don't talk too much about that. I mean, I got a hold of the game contract with a Freedom of Information Act request, and I think the payout's 800,000, something like that. But they play a Power Five every year. The gripe I have in years like this is they'll play a game like Ohio State and then 2 lower FCS teams. So then you go into conference play kind of not really knowing just where things stand. Next year they play Villanova, very comparable FCS program. I'd like to see more of that. But as far as openly discussing the financial benefits, no, they don't get too much into it. But obviously, it is there. The other thing I would say is you mentioned, the Appalachian State game. Youngstown's not going to go into this afraid. This is a program that's pretty proud and has a rich history, so they're going to go in looking to win this game, but certainly an uphill climb.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but no, that's great. I wouldn't want a team come in going, we're just here for the paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
That does nothing for Ohio State. It really does nothing for them either. I don't know. Like, I guess maybe being from Ohio, kind of following Youngstown State as far as how they do today, and that's about as far as it goes for me. Did they make the playoffs type of thing? Oh, they did. Cool. Are they going to be on like ESPN 3 or something? I might DVR it. So that's kind of like I would say the majority of big time college fans here in Ohio when it comes to say like a Youngstown State or a Mount Union in
Mm-hmm.
Division 3, who's got a great reputation as well of being a national power in their own division. But I wouldn't want a team coming to Ohio State who doesn't believe, hey, you know what, we're coming to play, man. Like that's the whole point of this, and I think it's great. I think it's great for the state of Ohio. I think it's great for the Penguins. I think it's great for the Buckeyes. I love and the whole Jim Tressel thing just kind of puts a bow on it. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
like so it's going to be really interesting because you gotta think Jim's going to be there, right? Have you heard? Is Jim going to the game
I
or
haven't asked, but you absolutely have
he's
to
got to
assume
be
that he's
right?
going to be there. And I'm with you. I thought if ever there's a chance for him to dot the I, I his two programs are together, so
Yeah.
it would make sense.
It absolutely would. I could see him with a sweater vest with the Y and the O on one side of each other. Like
We joked and just said it would be red.
yeah, there you go. Just plain red. There you go. I like it. Very, very good. You got a score prediction for me?
I'm in the ballpark of something like 49-10, 56-10. I think this is going to get pretty out of hand. The thing I'm curious to see is how YSU's secondary holds up against, frankly, what's become wide receiver U
Mm-hmm.
almost. A week ago against Valpo, a little bit of struggles in the short and intermediate game and some miscommunication gave up that long touchdown before half. Well, not a long touchdown, a long play that set up a touchdown. So I think if the secondary doesn't take a pretty great step forward, this is going to be a really tough day.
Yeah. What does a successful day look like in Columbus, Ohio, for the Youngstown State University Penguins?
I think first and foremost, come back fully healthy. Don't lose anybody to a game, frankly, that nobody thinks you're going to win. Come back whole roster intact. Beyond that, make it competitive as long as you can. Maybe force a few turnovers. A year ago at Kentucky, they hung with UK for the better part of the first half because of turnovers, but the offense couldn't get it going. If you can get a couple early turnovers and maybe put some fear into people early on, you'll feel pretty good about yourself.
Is there any Joel Whetzel plans for coming to Columbus this weekend? And if so, what's your plans, man, outside of covering the game, or are you strictly all business this weekend?
Now, I'm all business. I did not grow up in Ohio, so
Okay.
won't be won't be too much straying from the game. I do enjoy coming down quite a lot. I'll be going down and back that day though, so unfortunately can't hang out too much. But definitely looking forward to my debut at Ohio Stadium. I've never been in the horseshoe, so I'm looking
Well,
forward to
if you can come a little bit early,
that.
Joel, enjoy some of the tailgate. If you get the chance to go to the skull session, which is 2.5 hours before kick, you'll want to do that with your press pass. You can get right down in there, probably cover that thing. It's really cool.
Okay.
Obviously, that would be a great article for you. And then I think the first time you get to watch Script Ohio.
Hmm.
is pretty neat. Just about every away person that comes for the first time that I've spoke to will come away saying, okay, Script Ohio is legit. That's a pretty cool tradition. And a lot of people do like the skull session as well. It's basically a giant statewide pep rally
Okay.
before the game. It's pretty awesome. The band, the coach speaks, the players walk through. The atmosphere just gets you kind of built up, and then of course the players walk into the stadium and prepare for the game. At that point, tailgating is going to be great. Tailgating is awesome at Ohio Stadium for the most part. I've been to several Big Ten schools, and Ohio State kind of blows everybody away when it comes to
Hmm.
tailgating. So tailgating scene is spot on if you want to do that as well, Joel. But hey, you enjoy yourself at the shoe. You have yourself a great time. We are looking forward to having Youngstown come and be a part of what we hope is a good, fun, and healthy game, like you
Hmm.
said. And you know what? I usually I say go Bucks or OH, and I'll respect the what's the chant Youngstown has? Do they have some kind of chant?
Just YSU over in Youngstown.
YSU, waddle like a penguin. I don't know, kind of chant they got, but maybe go Trestle, right? Trestle
Hmm.
for the win on Saturday. Thank you so much, Joel. Where can everybody follow you at, man?
Yeah, so on Twitter at Joel Whetzel, and Whetzel is with an H. So Joel Whetzel. And then my work is on the Vindicator and Tribune Chronicle websites, vindy.com and tribtoday.com.
Beautiful. Go check that out, everybody. Get yourself prepared for the game. If you live in Northeast Ohio and you kind of follow Youngstown a bit, give this guy a follow. He's a great writer. He's an award-winning writer, actually. I saw that. So congratulations on that, Joel.
Yeah.
Fantastic job there. Thanks so much for being part of the OHO podcast. Have a great game this Saturday.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome.